Hello, everyone. Welcome. I don't know why my screen is so small. If anyone can let me know, just let me know, and I'll fix that. But today we're talking about NFT scams, frauds, and IP infringement. And I'm so excited today to have such a esteemed panel join me. So we've got Kadine James, and Kadine is a creative technologist at Yahoo, and she's also the founder of the Immersive Kind Collective. It's a creative collective exploring the future of post-reality experiences. She's considered one of the top most influential women working in digital fashion, machine learning, 3D printing, augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on. Then we have Thomas Maddrey, who's general counsel for ASMP. It's a creator-focused trade association that's more than 75 years old. He's deeply involved in copyright advocacy work at all levels, including the US Supreme Court, Congress, and the Copyright Office. And he's focused on protecting the rights of all creators. And then we have Chris King, and after 8 years at a financial and legal tech startup and 6 years at Google, building tools and solutions for legal decision-making, discovery, investigation, and law enforcement, Chris has joined Jason Bailey, better known as Art Gnome, whom I'm sure we all know, to build a software educational resources and partnerships to protect NFTs, collectors, and artists, and to advance the NFT space. And so they've created ClubNFT, and so I'm so excited to have Chris. And then myself, I'm an IP lawyer and art agent. I'm also an art arbitrator with the International Court of Art at The Hague. And I'm the founder of Artcryption, which is a platform to help buyers and sellers buy authentic and verified art and IP assets and digital assets. I also serve on the Standard Council of Canada Blockchain Committee, and I'm head of the NFT working group at the Art Identity Standard. So back in January 27th, OpenSea wrote that over 80% of the items created with their tool on their platform were plagiarized works, fake collections, and spam. And then in February, we had about 1.7 million in NFTs that were stolen in an apparent phishing attack in OpenSea. And so we're going to be talking about some of these issues and other issues in the NFT space dealing with security and safety. So counterfeit NFTs, copycats, copy minting, fake account validations, similar collection names, getting scammed by not knowing, what's authentic, what's not, looking at IP rights of celebrities and brands and just other artists in general. Looking at, other scams like rug pulling and wash trading and shill bidding and bid shielding. So, these are just some of the issues, that we sort of see. So, why don't we start with Thomas? Thomas, if you want to, and then we'll go around, what are some of the biggest issues you've seen in the space and how have you been dealing with it? And also if you can let everyone know sort of, what you do and how you're changing the landscape.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I am general counsel and the head of national content and education for the American Society of Media Photographers. And we have been focused since the beginning on creators' rights. And so when the NFT landscape started to emerge, especially in relation to still imagery and digital art, this was something that impacted the photography community, obviously. Pretty substantially, but quickly thereafter, all the other issues that accompany the digital photography world outside of NFTs started rearing their heads. And in my world, I deal a lot with intellectual property and copyright infringement and how copyright works in a digital space. And so when I look at the problems that might be associated with NFTs, I'm thinking a lot about ownership. I'm thinking a lot about what people know and don't know about how copyright works, certainly in the US and in most other countries, and how the notions of ownership and the notions of copyright are so critical to both artists who are creating works and collectors who are buying works, and each person in the ecosystem needs to understand kind of what the rules are with regards to copyright, and I think that's a critical part.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think it's unbelievable how much of the space is a lot of infringement, and really, this started out as really being a space to really help artists and help them with ownership and authenticity. And instead, we're seeing, sort of the opposite, which is really scary. I also want, the panel to comment on the fact that we've got the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and there's certain collections that give the IP when they sell it. Typically an artist doesn't give an IP. When they're selling their art, you just literally just get the physical art. But now with this whole concept of a JPEG, it's so easy to reproduce and distribute that people think, hey, I can get the JPEG. And then we've got these generative art projects that also give away the commercial IP rights, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And so now what we're seeing is with their recent purchase of CryptoPunks, which never gave the IP to the owners that purchased it, but now the owners are going to be getting the IP, and and I think these projects, and while I love the idea behind it of allowing people to commercialize, it can negatively impact artists that are just not used to ever having to do that, and could affect artists their career, because giving away your copyright, you could end up infringing your own copyright by creating something similar in the future and negatively impacting your career. So while I think it's fine if a project wants to give their IP, but if an artist doesn't want to give their IP, then they definitely should not have to do that. And I've personally been negotiating a lot of deals and seeing that push to give the IP rights. And I think seeing both sides of these the situation when it comes to IP rights, I think that's why we're seeing a lot of copy minting and a lot of copying of projects. So I'm just wondering, does anyone want to share their thoughts on that?
Yeah, if I could. So, I'm Chris. I'm with Club NFT. When Jason and I started Club NFT about a year ago, Jason's obviously been big in the space for 4 or 5 years now, and a lot of people were coming to him like, "Hey, we want to throw some money at you. What kind of thing would you want to do? Would you want to start a company, start a marketplace, whatever?" There are a lot of marketplaces out there, and Jason and I looked at the situation, and the main issue with the blockchain is that it's a trustless environment. What that really means is there's no one person that you can trust to help you do things the right way and keep you safe. Um, Actually, you need to trust every single person that you interact with. So we created Club NFT to try to provide some tools and educational resources to protect collectors and artists. And I think one of the big things is that this people in this space just assume that, oh, this is some magical new economy and the old rules don't apply anymore, and they just somehow got it in their head that copyright is last year's thing and it doesn't apply here. They don't realize that copyright still matters. The laws in place haven't gone anywhere, and I think when we're looking at like the Bored Ape Yacht Club thing, what is the benefit of transferring the copyright to the owner of the NFT? So there were projects that people created to kind of create derivative versions of Bored Ape Yacht Club, and then they kind of got sued and in trouble with the Bored Ape folks, and there were all these clashes, right? Does my buying an NFT make it safe now for me to create a derivative of or a new project based on the IP rights of that? What happens if I sell that NFT to someone else and this copyright is somehow attached to the NFT? Does that mean I shut my business down? A lot of people aren't really thinking through the actual legal aspects of all of this, but I also think that the legal system is a very expensive and very slow tool to use to shut a lot of this stuff down. I mean, there are laws that I can't just sell my neighbor's house because I don't have the deed. And if I try to do that, someone might throw me in jail or the owner might sue me. But what happens if there are 1,000 people all over the world under different jurisdictions all selling deeds to that house that are counterfeit? The legal system is playing a game of whack-a-mole, or would be if people were actually bothering to use it to fight counterfeit. And I feel like the main thing is people who buy a counterfeit NFT or an NFT for a work that wasn't owned by the person who created the NFT, et cetera, what they're doing is throwing their money away. That NFT, anyone who spends 5 seconds looking at it and realizing, oh, this NFT wasn't even created by the artist who made this work, so it's worth nothing, they're just getting scammed. I'm less worried about the impact on the artist for those counterfeit NFTs, and more worried about for the collectors who are just being scammed out of their money. I think if we can educate and get collectors to a point where they're no longer falling for these scams, it'll no longer be worth it for the scammers to execute them, therefore protecting the artists. So I think that it's going to be a combination of certainly with individual marketplaces, DMCA notices can do a lot to take down infringing work on a single marketplace. But on a broader level, I think education and making sure that collectors and artists have the tools they need, which really haven't been built out very well in this space, to identify fraudulent art. I think it's going to be a combination of all those factors. And I think that the copyright issue, it touches on all of these things, but I don't see any real benefit to giving away copyright in an environment where most of the collectors don't need the copyright to get the enjoyment of the NFT.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very true, Chris. I'm interested to hear what Kadine has to say. Kadine, you're just celebrated and wonderful artist and embedded in the space. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Vandana, for the opportunity to be on this panel with Chris and Thomas, whose work I admire and respect very much, as I do your own, Vandana. So yeah, I'm really interested, obviously, as an artist and a creator, in terms of owning my own IP and rights to the copies, future copies. I'm using a lot of technology in the production process, augmented reality. I'm creating virtual worlds, using rapid prototyping technologies. And I've been in this space for over 20 years now, and I think that there's lots of work that needs to be done, and going back to Chris's point, there's obviously a lot of bad practice out there, and I think that we obviously need better regulation, and that some of the laws are just outdated and need to be repurposed for the 21st century. So I think, from my perspective as an artist and as a creator, I'm really interested in the opportunity to own my data and that sovereign IP right, but also I'm aware of counterfeit and plagiarism and the bad practices that are going on. And I think it's worth remembering that minting a piece of artwork as an NFT is not the same as having an intellectual property or the IP ownership of it. And I think that scammers and bad actors could easily steal an artist's work and open a fake OpenSea account where they can list counterfeit artworks for auction. This would make your NFT essentially valueless. And I think that we've seen a lot of that, Vandana, and you and I have had a number of conversations in and around that. My other role is as a creative technologist at Yahoo. We were official partners with IMG for New York Fashion Week. And Yahoo collaborated with IMG and Rebecca Minkoff, a leading fashion designer, to create an extended reality content experience that added a multi-dimensional lens to her collection, showcasing the future of fashion through our immersive production studio. So we designed an immersive web gallery of NFTs that allowed users to move through the space using their mouse through an immersive experience. And they could also view the NFT as an AR, augmented reality artwork. So we were not involved with the production of Rebecca's NFT using her IP, as she handled the cryptocurrency transactions herself. But we also worked with NFTs on the Electric City project, Vandana, which you're aware of, which was our immersive shopping experience, which celebrated 25 years of Pokemon. It was a collaboration between the streetwear designer Charlie Cohen, Pokemon, and the Selfridges, which is a luxury retail store here in London. So we used NFTs for that particular project, where we created a collection of physical garments which you could buy and purchase in store, alongside Drip, which was a collection of digital wearables that you could shop and wear in VR, and also as an augmented reality lens. And then you could also take the digital garment as a digital avatar across over 300 platforms in Ready Player Me. So we used digital packs, which included a built-in functionality to mint to an Ethereum wallet as an NFT via Polygon post sale. So we're doing a lot of work in the space. But I the point I was wanting to make mostly is that we need better regulation, and we need to ensure that there are robust practices in place in order to protect people, their data, their rights, and how they can, be in the space and do it safely.
Well, thank you. I wanted to also just point out some examples of what's been happening in the space, and I'd love to hear from Thomas, because I know he's really been pursuing a lot of NFT infringement on behalf of the members of his association. But we've got the situation of I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but Aya Trier, who's an artist, and she literally had 500 listings that were infringing her work. And at a certain point, you get to the point where how many cease and desist letters or how many takedown notices can you give, because you have to submit it one at a time. It's just not feasible. And then we're seeing the situation where the platforms are inundated with these takedown notices, because there's just so much of it that it takes them a very long time to even comply. And then we've got artists that don't even know that this is happening to their art. They've never even created an NFT, and they're hearing from their fans or their colleagues and other artists, hey, your work is on OpenSea, and they're like, I never created an NFT. And and even if they might have been interested in creating one, they now no longer even want to be involved in the ecosystem, which could really affect negatively the whole space. We've got the situation of the Meta Birkins. That's an interesting case where we have an example of a creator called his name's Mason Rothschild, and he created this NFT using the Birkin bag, calling it the Meta Birkin. It was his, they're very cool, but once again, Birkins was not too happy about that, and saw it as an infringement of their handbags. And so his argument is that it's under the First Amendment. It gives me the right to create art based on my interpretation of the world. As a lawyer, I'm more of the side of Birkin. I agree with them that this is a complete IP infringement of their rights. But there's examples like this, or the examples of the Banksy or the Basquiat, where they'll destroy the original and give you the IP rights when they don't even own the IP rights. So wanted to hear more from Thomas, some of his what you've encountered in the space, how you've been dealing with it, because then right after I'd love to jump into let's talk about solutions.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that all of the examples that you gave, there's some common threads, and one of them is that if you're a creator, you're an artist, and then suddenly you hear from your friend that your work is up on a platform that you didn't put it there. What we always say in photography long before NFTs was, once you find one infringement, there's 10 others that you haven't found, right? Once stuff is out there, it's out there. And as Chris was saying, you get into this game of whack-a-mole. But in my view, it's an important game. And remember also that I'm speaking now about US copyright law, but there's almost every country is a member of the Berne Convention. And so copyright laws are very similar in core respects from country to country. But here in the US, of course, we have the DMCA. And the DMCA has a provision in it, which is the notice and takedown provisions, which allow essentially safe harbor for the platforms if they take down content that's been reported to be infringing. But the law is a little iffy, because the law says they need to expeditiously take it down, which is not a word that gives a time frame. It just says expeditiously, right? And so, as you mentioned, when platforms are inundated with takedown requests, they can argue that they were working on as fast as they could. And what we're seeing with NFT marketplaces is so many of them are popping up and getting so large that they're not prepared to deal with the legal and regulatory aspects of these things. And so, as you may have seen at OpenSea, there was a few months ago a number of people who were sending in DMCA takedown requests every day. They had found their work up there. It was clearly their work. It was clearly not them. People were just straight scamming, straight ripping off, infringing the work, and they were trying everything they could do to get it to be taken down, and just getting silence in return. Right? That's not okay. And the responsibility lies with the platforms, but responsibility also lies with the lawmakers, who need to be able to look at these issues and have some penalties. Now, the DMCA has monetary penalties that are pretty significant. If a platform loses those safe harbor provisions and there's widespread infringement on there, I mean, a lot of platforms have been shut down in the past outside of the NFT space. And so these are important issues. But as you mentioned, Vandana, a lot of people don't even know that they have these options available to them. Again, under U.S. copyright law, the copyright is invested in you, the creator, at the moment of creation. You own it. It's yours, and that means that you're the only one who's allowed to reproduce the work, display the work, distribute the work. If anyone else does it without your permission, they're infringing on your copyright. Now, I noticed there were some comments that I hope we have time to respond to some of them. And maybe in solutions, we can talk about how the issue with an artist retaining their copyright is not to prevent others from doing certain things with it in the future. It's to retain some level of ownership over the core asset, that thing that you earned when you created the work. If I wrote a book today and tomorrow anyone could just take my book and put their name on it and sell it, no one would write books, right? That's the idea of copyright law. That's the principle.
And before we move on to the next piece, if I could just add on a little bit to what Thomas said, so I worked at Google for 6 years in their legal department, building the tech solutions for them. So Google notoriously has terrible customer service, actually zero customer service. You have a problem with your account, here's a help page. If it doesn't help you, there's nobody for you to talk to. That's not the case for laws that have fines attached to them. Google has thousands of lawyers and thousands of people scanning through stuff, watching for takedown requests for, compliance with all these laws all over the country. To your point, Vandana, about, OpenSea and other people just kind of going silent on these DMCA requests. I think it'll take just a couple big fines for them to very quickly realize, oh, we really have to do something about this. So I do think that, the more people are aware that they do have these legal rights, there are these legal processes like the takedown request, do it, assume they're going to ignore you, and then keep pushing on. Get some legal counsel and get the money out of the platform. They'll very quickly start to realize they got to put these processes in place.
Yeah, and in all fairness to them, I mean, we don't know if it's just they're not responding to them, or that they're just getting so many that they don't have the proper process, and they're being inundated. So I'm founding Artcryption, and on my platform, it's it's a concern as well, like what's going on in the space. And so for us, we're going to verify users. We're going to make sure that the IP rights are there, and obviously, being lawyers, we're partnering with lawyers with the platform to pursue these things and not have it change the landscape of protection. Web 2.0 with the internet was all about sharing content and not getting paid and trying to figure out how to solve that. And Web 3.0 has given us that solution, but we still need to fine tune it to actually be an effective solution, because it can act as an alternative copyright protection by minting and getting an NFT and getting that date and time stamp and proving the date that you created something, which to me is quite revolutionary. And I see IP registries in the future incorporating blockchain. But the situation with other platforms that are just, so huge and getting these things, my advice would be is, if the takedown notice is not working, then you can also do a takedown notice with Google, because technically the site is on Google and they have their own takedown notice form. And I've seen lots of artists be successful that way. Another thing that you can do is, if you're an artist that hasn't put your NFT on the platform, you can put something on your website and social media to say, if you see an NFT for me, I've never created an NFT. So, buyers should take their due diligence, make sure that, what they're buying is actually an authentic, one from the artist directly. Sending, a cease and desist letter is, it's even getting legal help. There's only so much you can do if a platform's not able to respond quickly. But the other solution that I've been seeing I've seen a lot of Twitter threads based on just NFT infringements, and people retweeting and posting about it online, and that having some effect as well. Sort of a PR angle. Those are some of my tips. I don't know, Thomas, Kadine, Chris, do you have any other tips to offer the audience?
I do. I echo everything that you've said so eloquently, Vandana. I think, there's lots of ways to try and avoid scams. And my number one piece of advice is do your research. I think before buying an NFT from any marketplace, do your research. Make sure that the artwork you are buying is from a verified account. Look for the blue check mark next to the artist's profile picture on OpenSea or at other NFT marketplaces. If there is none, then find the artist on Twitter, as you've just mentioned. Go through their website or other social media channels. Ask them directly if the artwork that you want to buy is actually theirs, and if you have the right to use the profile, and also see if the artist or the NFT project has a Discord channel, and be a part of that community. And I think, being a part of the community, being active in that community, you'll understand who's a good actor and who's not.
Exactly. What about you, Chris? I know that you're doing some really amazing things, and I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. Like I mentioned, trust is the most important thing in a trustless environment. And that means that just because something is for sale on OpenSea doesn't mean it's something that you ought to buy. You really have to understand who you're buying from, what it is that you're buying. I think that, Kadine's point, get on Twitter, get on Discord. These are the two biggest places where almost all talk in Web3 is happening. Find the person who you are supposedly buying the artwork, whoever was the artist, find them and see if this is something they really made. I think that, people like the blockchain in a sense because you can very easily see who created a thing and who bought it and sold it and who's selling it to you, right? It's anonymous, it's pseudonymous, right? But you can at least figure out who is the original creator. If that original creator's, address isn't the one that, say, this famous artist that you think you're buying their artwork of is that they've attested to, that's a good sign that it's probably fraudulent. Part of what I worry about, though, is that while you do need to hop on Twitter and Discord to kind of understand what's going on, that leads a lot of people into pump and dump scams, which is another of the topics that we're thinking about talking about here. Not so much with art NFTs, but with more PFP projects or projects with a roadmap. A lot of folks buy things that are promised and not actually what they're receiving. So, for example, hype and FOMO, fear of missing out, are really important in this space. It's easy to get a small group of people on Twitter or on Discord, making it seem like a project is very, very active, making it seem like there's actual interest in, buying a certain token. and they're selling effectively a roadmap. They're saying, hey, buy this NFT. It's maybe not an art NFT, maybe it's just a token or a DAO. Buy this thing, and here's what you'll be able to do with it in a year and in a month, right? This pump and dump, and people call this rugging, when all of a sudden, hey, we sold $1 million worth of these tokens, and instead of executing on the roadmap and building the stuff we promised, we're just going to take the money and leave. I don't see that so much as a rug pull, so much as just people being scammed by really obvious scams. I mean, I wouldn't buy, a key and being told, hey, we're going to give you a car in a year, we promise, for, $30,000. I'd say, show me the car. A lot of people are just getting into this space and getting into these weird little Twitter or Discord communities and getting really excited and losing their money that way. So I would say it's not just a matter of go to Twitter and Discord and figure out who you're buying from, but also like look at some big names in the space. If nobody reputable and nobody with a name and a reputation worth protecting is getting involved with a particular project, it's probably a good sign that you are taking a huge risk if you get involved in it.
No, I agree. I agree. And we've run out of time. I can't believe it. The time goes by so quickly. But just to close off, I think having Thomas here, going to organizations like him, if you're a photographer, or getting the Club NFT badge, which at Artcryption I hope we get Club NFT approved. And I think platforms like myself and other platforms before us, they're learning the problems and hopefully coming with solutions. But we're going to actually continue the conversation in the Discord at the AMA. So all four of us are going to be, continuing this, and you can ask us anything. And we look forward to seeing you in the Discord.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.